So this is the Crunch rig, and we've deliberately not touched Crunch at all, and we haven't been rigging on him, we haven't modeled him at all. And that's purely to show you because this guy, if we turn on his edge faces, he's got some more detail around here on the gills, he's got some gill detail. But you can see that, well, we've added another, some of these extra fins at the back here. But you can see that, those are the main differences. He's got a mouth, he's got some eyes with actual eye sockets. But the technique that I used to model this guy is exactly the same as what I did for Snark as well. So there's no real differences in terms of the modeling. When it comes down to the rig, he's got a generic FK system in it, just like we had with Snark. And what I've done is I've added in some controls for that. So the controls are just lines that I've turned on, so the visibility in the rendering, so you can enable it in the viewport, turn it on and off, and you can see in here that we can increase sizes and things like that. So if I change the thickness, you can see that increase. And so nothing really technical at all, just adding in some nice controls that you can get a hold of if you want to. And these directly affect the spine joints of this guy. So if I rotate it, you can see he's got nearly exactly the same motion actually as Snark did. And if I actually grab these guys, if I grab all of the spine joints, you'll notice that he's got a few more spine joints just because of his length. But really that's it. If I rotate these around, you'll see that he gets the same sort of issues as well that we had with Snark. So you can see he gets some bunching up around here. If I just turn on edge faces, he's got some bunching around here and here, but that's fine. And if we bring this up, you can see that his head actually starts to concave a little bit with this upper dorsal fin. So all of the same issues, and using the exact same techniques to model him. He works quite nicely though, and he's animatable from this point. He's a little bit slower to work with, just purely because he's around about 30,000 polys, I think. I could be wrong, but he's definitely way more than Snark is. I've added in, instead of a primary joint just down the front, he has a number of them, so when you rotate this, you can see that he gets a nice sort of nice shape on him rather than just a straight one. And this is obviously nice and twistable as well. In terms of skinning, the skinning's exactly the same. If I unfreeze everything, just grab him, I'm going to turn off the mesh smooth, and you can see the geometry change a little bit just because I turned it off. And then if I jump into the skin, you can see I used the same sort of technique. So let's have a look. So we've got the head one joint, so he's obviously got more head joints like I said, and these just start to blend up towards the front, and the spine is exactly the same. So you can see where I've painted weights, made it nice and smooth in places. There's nothing different in here from going from Snark to this guy, except this guy takes a lot longer to do. There's more to think about and things like that, but generally they're pretty much all the same. So he's got two joints for his tail as well, and if we go in and start moving that around, you can see that the difference is, there's not much difference. It just makes it a little bit smoother when we're rotating things around and getting him to deform. And likewise with this upper fin as well, he's got a few more, so you can get a nice twist on that as well. And those are the big differences in terms of the geometry. So the rig, we've got some extra stuff. Let's take a look at the bone system on this guy. And actually, before we do that, if you check out the layers, these are all nice and clean. So we got the rig and the skeleton. If I go in here, I always do this, and it annoys me trying to find it again because it's easy to do, and then trying to find this is a pain. So if I right click and unhide all, just go yes to that, you'll notice we still don't have any joints. There's no joints in here at all. So what we have to do is come into, let me find it again, there you go. In the display layer, you'll see that I've got some custom things set up in here. So let's turn off all of these, and let's just remove these as well. Alright, then let's just hide that out. Now we can see all of the bone systems that we've got in here as well. And this is actually a really good thing to do though, is it keeps everyone who's animating it away from it. Even if they're trying to unhide things, they'll never actually see the bones and joints and the systems that you've done to set this stuff up. So in terms of the skeleton structure, you can see the number of joints has increased quite a lot for a spine, but you know, these things here, they just control it. You know, there's nothing special. It's all an FK system. Likewise, if you didn't want to use this system, you didn't want to use the FK system, go ahead, put in that spline system, and automate the swim setup. I felt that this guy, you know, he's a little bit more cartoony, and we need that from him, so go ahead in there and do whatever you need to, but we're going to go ahead with the FK system so we've got more control as an animator. So let me just unhide that geometry again. And you can see the control for the eyes here. It's just a single joint pointing down. If I start to rotate this around, you'll see that it actually affects the skin around the edges of the eye. So let's just try to do that. So it's just a very small amount, but it's just enough to give that some sort of fleshy eyelid. And all I've done there is used these joints, this eye joint, and affected the area very lightly around the eyelid area, and just to move it. So nothing difficult. There's nothing special set up in there. It's just skinning again. Just taking a bit of time on the skin. And so that's really it, to be honest. I mean, there's nothing more complicated in here. One thing that we can look at is doing some corrective shapes, and one of the places that will definitely need it is on the jaw. So if I rotate the jaw down, you can see straight away that, you know, this doesn't look as good as what it does when it's closed. So he's losing a lot of volume, and his deformation is not the best. And you know what, actually I could spend some more time skinning and getting this to look a lot nicer as well. But for the purposes of this, I think it's good enough to demonstrate what we need. So we can go ahead in the next video and start working on some post-space deformers to make sure that, you know, this jaw opening looks a lot better, and just use some corrective shapes to get that done.